Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Yeah, you know, the whistles work a lot better than the voices do. It's really remarkable. Anywhere you want. Where do we sit? Anywhere you want. There's plenty of seats. So, I'm Ross Tartell. I'm president of the chapter. I know most of you, and I know that most of you know me, so few introductions are necessary. I want to say welcome to today's program, and just a couple of things. First of all, I want to do a shout out to Discover Video, because we webcast, we simulcast all of these programs, and then they're archived, so that while we've got people here in the room who can network and eat and enjoy each other's company, we also have people who log in and then watch the simulcast. So I just want to let you know that there's a lot that's going on, and I want to welcome those of you who are dialing in and clicking on the link and checking us out for tonight. We can all wave, but one of the things that we do is that the camera stays towards the front, so that it's all about giving you that little bit of personal space that is so important to, they won't watch you eat and that sort of thing. So, a couple of things. As you know, with every meeting, you need to be aware of certain things, like how to escape. So it's pretty good. You know where the exit signs are. Those of you, and I don't see any really new faces, so I won't talk about how do you deal and respond to those primary drives. I think you can figure that out on your own. And then just a couple of heads up. First of all of you know that ASTD is now ATD, the Association of Talent Development, which means that we are changing our chapter name from ASTD Southern Connecticut Chapter to ATD Southern Connecticut Chapter. That means changes in bylaws. We've posted that on the website. We've talked about it at the last meeting, a whole range of different things. And starting tomorrow, we need to ask for the chapter's approval. That approval will be sent out through a SurveyMonkey survey that all members, if you're a paid member, you will get a survey where you can click and say, yes, I approve, or no, I disapprove. The board has endorsed the changes in the bylaws. Operationally, they don't mean anything meaningful to any of us here. It allows us to change our name, allows us to keep our bank accounts, allows us to take care of our administrator, allows us to pay for the Norwalk Inn. So I guess those things are important, but for a day-to-day change, it doesn't mean anything else. So I encourage you to say yes. Otherwise, we're in deep guano. So that survey will come out. You'll get about 3 weeks to take care of it. We will be talking about volunteers in a moment. At this time of the year, we also begin to talk about succession planning. And all the members of the board are highly paid, highly remunerated, and we're actually thinking of tripling their salary. But you know what it means in terms of our dues? Nothing. Because 0 times anything is you know what. Learn that in 2nd grade. So, but the benefit you get is not monetary. And I can speak from experience. I was president of this chapter in 1990, and I signed up again. It's really one of those nice things that you get from serving the chapter, serving the profession, and just meeting a range of people. And it's been very good for me both personally and professionally. So I encourage you to think about volunteering, and you'll hear more about that in a few moments. But we are looking for directors at large to join the board. A couple of things, and that is about the culture and how we live together as a chapter when we are together. And that is, we are cooperative, we are friends, and this is on my Myers-Briggs F side of my continuum, so you understand where I'm coming from. If it was a T, I'd say we have rules and regulations that talk about how we relate to each other and how we work from a professional and a sales and an internal perspective. But since I'm a off-the-charts Myers-Briggs F, you'll have to survive with me, and we can do kumbayas later. But this is all around collaboration and creating a culture that really takes us all forward in the future in partnership. So I just want to say thank you for that. So we have a fabulous set of program for tonight. We have incredible programming through the end of the year. And so you'll hear more about the program for tonight when we get the introduction on mindfulness, and a special thank you for our speaker tonight. Next month we have Ron Ashkenas, who is a partner at Schaefer Consulting, who will talk about simplifying the organization. He's helped create Workout for GE. He's just a fabulous guy. He writes for Harvard all the time. He's just a seminal thinker in the field. And I've seen him present many times, and he's just a special treat. Following him, we have this Chief Learning Officer for GE. And he'll talk about leadership going into the future. And GE, as you know, is known for its leadership development, and it doesn't get to have its reputation just because of its marketing muscle. It's got a lot of substance. I spent a couple of years at GE. I know what they talk about, and I know what they deliver. And he's worth the price of admission. So come see him in May. In June, yes?
Oh, good. Go ahead. Just make sure we mention the June. We need them to start getting ready.
Yes. So Sissy is one of our VPs of programming. And as you can tell, you'll probably see it later in the board, they coach me a lot because that's one of the benefits I have with having such a strong board. In June, we have ATD's Got Talent. This is one of our most fun sessions of the entire year. And last year, I will confess to you, I applied to be one of the people, and they chose others. I was highly embarrassed, but I figured I would bare my soul, being the Myers-Briggs type indicator profile that I am. So it's one of those things where if you have something that you would really like to show off and strut your stuff, this is a place to do it. Rich Cooper, who's somewhere in the room, is one of our past winners. He can tell you how to do it in order to win if he decides not to compete again. But it's 15 minutes. You get to do something that you're really fabulous at. It's really fun. It's competitive. There's 3 other people plus you who are doing it, and it's just a great time for the audience and for you. So think about what happens in June. So those are the things I wanted to go through. So let me go through, and Mary Beth. Mary Beth is one of our board members, of course.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I and Laura McNerney are the co-membership chairs of this chapter, and we'd like at the beginning of each meeting to welcome new members who are here for the first time. So are there any folks who are here for the first time?
I actually joined today.
You did? Well, excellent. So, Andy, if you'd like to quickly introduce yourself. You're going to introduce yourself in a minute. All right. Thank you. Would anyone else care to? Hi.
Susan Gannon, career coach, Momentum for Growth.
Thank you. Thank you, and welcome.
Thank you.
Any other brand new members for this evening? Okay. I'm going to hand this over to my partner, Laura, who will carry on.
Thank you, Mary Beth. So I'm just going to touch on two things tonight. One is Martha, one of our board members, is not with us tonight, but as most of you know, she runs our resource table. And this is our table in the back where if you would like any information about ASTD or ATD, it's kind of funny, I'm looking and half of it's branded ATD and half of it's still branded ASTD, so we're in transition. But there's lots of information back here. There are some books back here. Becoming a Power member, which is about joining both the local chapter and national. So if there's anything you'd like to pick up on the way up, by all means, please go ahead and do so. Which leads me to something else that's on the table, which is our volunteer opportunities forms, which are back here. Now, Ross mentioned that we are looking for directors at large, being that some of our board members will be leaving us in June. And I thought I would just take a moment to tell you about my experience as a director at large. So my first venture joining the chapter was in that position. And I remember thinking, well, what's a director at large? Is it, do you have to be really fat to be a director at large? Or what does that mean? And what it means is that you get to really come in and experience being part of a board and kind of test the waters in some different areas that might be appealing to you. So, you don't have to do one particular role. You get to maybe move around a little bit and experience what you feel comfortable with. So if you want to spend some time in programming, or maybe it's membership, or maybe it's volunteer coordination, or it's technology, or it's website, we can give you those different opportunities in that director at large role. So if that's something that interests you, please reach out to myself, Mary Beth, Ross, any of our board members. We're delighted to talk to you more about that, and we'd love to see you play with us. We have a great board, great time together. Ross has a phenomenal party every July, and that's worth it right there. So anyway, and then some other opportunities. We're always looking for help in programming, and I know that our counterpart, Elena, is not here this evening, but sponsorships. Any open months, do you know, Ross, off the top of your head?
I believe June.
Okay. I believe we're still looking for a sponsor in June. So for those of you that might be visiting us from a vendor organization and you might like to sponsor our meeting, we would love to have you. Or we would love to have you help Elena look for sponsors. So any interest, by all means, reach out to me, Mary Beth, any one of us, and we'll get you dialed in. And that's it. Okay. Now I go to Sissy. Where are you? There you are. Okay.
Just to add a note. Ross did a really good job, even without coaching. Quick note about June. In April, we'll begin in earnest. We'll be kind of putting out the call for applications for people to self-nominate for the talent contest. So start thinking about it now. Start getting ready. We'll give you more information then. We want to give you plenty of time to prepare if you're selected to compete. Did I cover that?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. And now I'm happy to hand it over to my co-chair, Debbie, or my co-vice president.
Yes. Sissy and I are co-chair of programs, and we're about to start our program tonight. So let's get it going here. All right. You want this? Okay. Thanks. All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Debbie Jackson, and we're fortunate enough tonight to have our speaker, Andy Lee. Andy is a senior consultant with the Potential Project and a partner at Working Mindfully. For over 15 years, he has held senior-level positions at Viacom, Merrill Lynch, Capital One, where he has been responsible for assessing and developing leadership talent. In 2006, he became an HR consultant and has since merged his two passions around mindfulness and executive development. His corporate and consulting background allows him to present mindfulness in a way that resonates deeply with executives and professionals. He was trained in mindfulness mindfulness facilitation at the well-known UMass Center for Mindfulness. He has an ABD from NYU in Org Psych, and he holds an MA in Organizational Psychology from Columbia University Teachers College, and a BA in Psychology from Emory. And also has a certificate in executive coaching. Andy teaches mindfulness-based stress reduction and has partnered with many clients over the years around mindfulness in the workplace. He lives in Connecticut with his wife and rescue dog, and I learned that he's an avid motorcyclist, and he takes extended trips, including taking one from New York to Patagonia, which, many of you know. I didn't know, but it's the southern tip of South America, so quite a trip. Let's give a warm welcome to Andy Lee. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Is this working? That's good. Okay. Thanks so much for coming out today to hear about mindfulness in organizations. So before I get started, perhaps we could just have a show of hands for help me get a sense of who's here in the room and your level of exposure to mindfulness. So how many people here are really new to the topic? You may have heard of mindfulness, but you really don't know that much about it at all. Okay, good. Excellent. All right. How many people here have read about it, are familiar with it, and are looking to learn more about it? Okay, thank you. And how many people here perhaps have a mindfulness practice, perhaps yoga or meditation? I'll include yoga here, yes? Okay, good. So we've got a nice mix of people. So what I'm going to be talking about today is bringing mindfulness into organizations. I have a lot of information to share with you about mindfulness in general, and then also about how it has been coming into organizations, especially over the last decade or so. So what I'd like to cover today is first talk about what mindfulness is and why it matters. Okay, why are we here? What's the buzz? You know, we hear about it a lot. Why do we hear about it? Why does it matter? Next, talk about mindfulness training in organizations. Okay, how long has this been going on? What does it look like? Okay, is it like training anything else, or is it completely different? Then I want to share with you some case studies, some mindfulness training programs that have been delivered by myself and organizations that I've been part of, and share with you some of the results, which I think are really pretty compelling. And then finally, talk about how to bring mindfulness into the workplace. If you work in a place and you'd like to bring it in, or if you're a consultant and you're thinking about doing this, what's involved? Now, how do we go about doing it? What would that look like? All right, does that sound okay? And before we get started, I'd also like to recognize a colleague of mine, Sheila Wall, who's also here. She's a mindfulness trainer as well, and works with me at the Potential Project, which is one of the big organizations that we're both hooked up with that is doing this training actually globally. So there's a lot of interest in mindfulness. Yes? Okay. Is there a volume on this? Like this? Is that better? Is that better? How's that? No? It is on. Is there a volume control somewhere? No? There's not one on here. I'll try to speak up, okay? All right, thank you. So what we see here is an explosion, basically, in research on mindfulness training. And these are academic studies done on mindfulness. As you can see, around 19... Oops.
No, they're adjusting it here. They're adjusting the volume.
Oh, they are? Okay, thank you. So around the turn of the century, around 2000, there was very little going on. And then in the last several years, it's really been an explosion of research in in the health-related benefits of mindfulness, the psychological benefits of mindfulness, and educational benefits of mindfulness. And just recently now there's been more research done on the effects of mindfulness in the workplace. Okay, but as you can see, this is going up, and it's continuing to go up. This year we're going to see over 600 articles published on the effects of mindfulness, and also research about what it is and what makes it work. Also, there's been a lot in the popular press about mindfulness. There was last spring there was a cover of Time magazine. Okay, here we have Anderson Cooper and Dan Harris, two media figures who have begun meditating and extolling the benefits of mindfulness. And then we also have Tim Ryan, the person in the middle, who is a representative in Congress from Ohio, and he wrote a book called Mindfulness. So it's really catching on in a very big way, and also it's coming back into organizations. So here's just a few of the books that have been published recently in the last 5 years, and many of these in the last 3 years, about mindfulness in organizations. Okay? And then, of course, along with the books that have been published, there have also been leading organizations that have begun to get interested in how to bring this in and how to get the benefits. And here are just a few of the organizations that now have established mindfulness programs, okay, that have invested money and have a program that is up and running in terms of bringing the benefits of mindfulness to their employees. So clearly there's a lot going on here, right? And, of course, there is a good reason for a lot to be going on, and that's because of the effects of mindfulness. But to really understand what mindfulness is about, reading a book is great. All right, you can learn a lot from a book, but mindfulness is one of those things that's really experiential. So what I'd like to do now is perhaps take a moment and do a little mindfulness practice. You think people are interested in doing that, giving this a try? It means you're going to have to stop eating for just a moment. Okay? So this is actually a great time to take a break, And here's what I'd like to do. What I'm going to share with you is, well, first of all, mindfulness practice has been around for thousands of years, literally. So what I'm going to share with you is not new. Okay? Yet this is a very useful and simple way to explain it, which we use at the Potential Project, which I'd like to share with you. And now once you learn this practice, you can take it with you, and you're good to go. You can begin doing mindfulness practice from here on out. Okay, so is everybody ready for this? Yeah. All right. So you can stay seated, actually. And all you do is follow this ABCD technique. Okay? And so the A stands for anatomy. So when we do mindfulness practice, we take a particular posture. Okay? We sit down with our legs in front of us, our feet planted straight on the floor. Okay? And we open up our chest, our back is straight for easy breathing. Okay? And maybe pull together the shoulder blades a little bit. Okay? Everybody feel nice and grounded. You can lay your hands down on your lap if you want, or anywhere they're comfortable. Okay? The B is for breathing. And I'm going to walk you through this quickly, and then we're going to do a practice. So what we do in mindfulness practice is we simply focus on the sensations of the body breathing in and breathing out. Okay? And then what happens is there's another thing that we bring in, which is called C, which is for counting. And so what we'll do is, as we're noticing the breath, we'll count on the out-breath. We'll give each breath a number from 1 to 10. So go 1, 2, as you breathe naturally, and I'll be guiding you through this. Okay? And then, as you do this, you will find that before long your mind will get distracted. And that's what the D is for, working with distractions. And once you notice your mind wanders, simply bring it back to awareness of the breath. Everybody ready to give this a try? Okay. So, got the posture. And perhaps I didn't mention this, but what we're going to do now is we're actually going to close our eyes. Okay, let the eyes close. And perhaps first off, noticing the sounds in the room. And now bringing awareness to the feeling of the feet on the floor. Just notice where the feet are on the floor. Noticing the weight of the body on the chair. Noticing the sense of gravity as it holds us onto our chairs. And now becoming aware of the fact that we're breathing. And just noticing the sensations of the body breathing in and the body breathing out. Not needing to breathe in any particular way. Just knowing that your body knows just how to breathe. And just observing the breath. Perhaps noticing it in the nostrils where the cool air is drawn in and the warm air is released. Or noticing it in the chest, where the chest rises and falls with each breath. And if it's comfortable or helpful for you, just labeling each out-breath with a number. Just gently labeling the out-breath with the number 1. And the next one with the number 2. And continuing to count up to 10. And letting go of the desire for anything to be different. Simply noticing things just as they are with a sense of openness and acceptance. Just relaxing into this present moment, right here, right now. And occasionally you may notice that your mind will wander off to thoughts of the past or thoughts of the future, or just daydreams. And when it does, just gently bringing awareness back to the breath. Without judgment, with just a sense of kindness. Noticing where the awareness is now. And when you're ready, allowing the eyes to open again. And maybe giving the body a little stretch, anything that it wants to do right now. So what was that like? What did you notice? Relaxing? Okay. Okay, you were pushing stuff away. What were you pushing away? There's a lot going on up there, right? How many people here found that relaxing? Okay. Okay. How many people here found it maybe frustrating or creating impatience? Anyone? No. Okay. Because that does happen sometimes as well. What else did you notice? Anybody else want to share something? Yes.
It took a little while to settle in.
Uh-huh.
Like at first I felt like I was darting all over the place, but I went through the numbers twice.
Okay.
And then the second time I found I was much more focused on counting that number on the outgraph.
Okay.
The first time around, I was like, 1, 2, 3, 4,
Okay, so it took a little while to settle down. Some people say it's like a glass of muddy water, of dirty water. Okay? If you shake it, it's opaque. You can't see through it. But if you set it down, after a while, it'll begin to settle. Now, sometimes we have a lot on our minds, and our minds will not settle. And that's normal as well. But over time, you'll find if you do something like this for anywhere from 5 minutes to 45 minutes a day, your mind will begin to settle a bit. Okay? Any other comments or observations about that? Yeah?
There's a certain alertness when I opened my eyes.
Alertness when you opened your eyes.
I felt like there was a little more energy and alertness than...
Yeah. And what did that feel? What do you think that was about?
I think perhaps it comes from the settling.
Oh, the mind...
The energy, it takes a lot of energy to pay attention and fight all those distractions.
Yeah, yeah.
And we do so much as we go through the day.
Yeah, yeah.
And energizing to think about one thing.
It is. Just have one thing to think about. Imagine that. Okay. Anyone else? One more comment? Yes.
I felt a real pause. That it gives me time to just recollect.
Yeah.
The other thing that in meditation, I've always been taught to put my hands together. And that makes such a difference to me. I feel a sense of unity, with the universe.
Great. Great.
I love that.
Thank you. So a sense of pausing is the first thing that you mentioned. And that actually there's a meditation teacher who's brought a name to that, the purposeful pause. Okay? And that's, I think, a useful way to think about it. So, congratulations. We didn't have to talk about whether you can meditate or not. Okay? We just all learned that we could. All right? So let's talk a little bit more about what mindfulness is. All right? There's a lot of misconceptions about mindfulness. All right? Some people believe that mindfulness is about checking out, just about going somewhere else, another reality, to another more pleasant reality than here, which is not the case. Okay? Some people think that mindfulness is a relaxation technique. Well, it's not. It's an awareness technique. Now, a side effect of this could be very relaxing. As a matter of fact, there's a lot of research that shows that mindfulness practice will reduce your stress. However, that's really a side effect. If you think about what we just did, okay, it wasn't about relaxing. It was about paying attention. Okay? And also in terms of the first thing, we did not check out. We did not go anywhere else. We actually became more present and more aware of what was going on. Some people think that mindfulness is about stopping your thoughts. It's not about stopping your thoughts, because that's probably not going to happen. Right? Our minds are thought machines, and it's not so easy to shut them down. It's more about how we relate to our thoughts, how much we listen to them, how loud they seem in our minds. Okay? And some people think that mindfulness is about being passive. It's not really about being passive at all. It's actually more about paying attention before you do something. Okay, that's one way to think about it. So what is mindfulness? Oh, and the other thing is mindfulness is mindfulness about sitting on a cushion with with sandalwood incense burning, It can be, but it doesn't have to be. It can happen right here in the Norwalk Inn. Okay. So what is mindfulness? Mindfulness is really very simply about paying attention to what's here and now, what's going on right here and right now. And if you think about it, what else does it really make sense to pay attention to? It's about being self-aware. It's about knowing what's going on for me. You know, am I anxious? Am I sad? Am I frustrated? What's going on for me? How am I feeling right now? It's bringing awareness to that. And imagine, what that might do to how you show up at work. On focusing on what's important and not being scattered and focusing on whatever might come up, whatever might be buzzing or beeping. And it's about staying balanced under stress. Okay, being able to be in a stressful situation and remain calm. Pulling a bit of that calm that we just experienced into our most stressful moments. And connecting deeply with others. What might it do if we paid attention to other people the way we pay attention to our breath just then? With a sense of openness and curiosity and full attention. Okay? Is this making sense to people? Okay. So another thing I just wanted to cover very quickly, and this is all kind of a preamble, of course, before we get to the main topic, or the extension that we're going to cover. The difference between mindfulness and meditation. This comes up a lot. Are they the same or are they different? Does anybody have any thoughts or reflections about this? Yes?
I was going to ask what the difference was, because mindfulness is about being present. I don't know that meditation is necessarily about being present.
Good. Okay. Well, this is one way to think about it, and I think it's very helpful. Mindfulness is about the strength and the quality of your awareness. Okay, how clear your mind is, how well you're able to focus on things, how open your perception is, and also, by the way, your heart, if I can say that in a professional meeting. Not only your mind, but also your heart, how open these things are. And this is a quality that we carry with us throughout the day. Meditation is the exercise that builds this strength. So if you think of your awareness as a muscle, okay, meditation is going to the gym for the brain. It's the exercise that builds that muscle. Okay, so what we just did really was a meditation. And if we do that regularly, we will strengthen our capacity to be fully present. Make sense? Okay. And mindfulness meditation is about placing our awareness on something and coming back to it. And that's really kind of the push-up. Okay? Wander off, come back. Wander off, and come back. And it's also paying attention non-judgmentally and openly to what's going on, without beating yourself up, wishing things were different, just kind of getting on with things and saying, okay, I'm going to come back to my breath now. Okay. So, now we know what it is. Why are people so excited about it? Or why am I so excited about it? I can't speak for you. But why is there so much being written about it? Well, the reason is that mindfulness practice, what we just did, has shown to have some really powerful effects on people. Positive effects. So some of the benefits of mindfulness, we can put them into 4 categories. The first one is affective or emotional. Okay? So mindfulness has been taught, in a secular way in the U.S. since about 1980. And since then, they've been doing research on it, obviously a lot more recently. They've shown that people who go through a mindfulness class, their stress reduces significantly. Okay? They will also have a more positive mood. They're able to work with anxiety and depression more effectively, and also develop greater empathy for other people. Okay? The next category of benefits is physical. Okay? Which includes lower blood pressure, improvement in stress-related conditions such as skin conditions and digestive conditions, stronger immune system, better coping with chronic pain, and better sleep. And these things, actually, I believe, are all kind of side effects of the stress level going down. Does that make sense? Okay. More recently, there's been a lot more research done on the mental effects, the cognitive effects of mindfulness. And I'll be zooming in on some specific research in a minute. which includes improved ability to pay attention, which makes perfect sense, right? Better memory and better decision making. Okay? Better decision making. We'll talk about this in a minute. And then finally, behavioral benefits. Being less reactive, less triggered, less annoyable. Okay? Improved persistence. Okay? Mindfulness practice is used for people who are overcoming bad habits and trying not to go back to them, or for people who are trying to build an exercise program. And it shows that it helps people to focus on what they're doing. Why? Because they're paying attention. And they'll catch themselves more quickly when something starts to go awry. And then more ethical behavior also. Isn't that interesting? So why might we act more ethically if we're paying attention? Well, we'll talk about it. So let me just run you through some results real quickly, some of the main results. As we mentioned, mindfulness training reduces stress significantly. And on this particular perceived stress scale, and there's any number of studies that will show this, that this is based on completion of actually the CBMT program, which is the Potential Project program. People have showed a significant reduction in stress. Okay? It also helps people to remember things better. And this study was done on a memory test called the 2-back test. There's different versions, 1 back, 2 back, 3 back, where someone reads a list of numbers to you, and you have to remember the one that he said 3 numbers ago. Okay? Very, working memory. People's scores on these tests improved. And that's after simply 4 days of 20 minutes a day practice. Most of these things, of course, were done with college students. Decision making. And this is one of my favorite studies, actually, which talks about, does anyone here know of a mental bias called the sunk cost bias? You're nodding. Do you want to share, or shall I explain it? Or?
Sure. You're not supposed to consider money that's already spent.
Right.
You're making a new decision, or you're making a decision.
Exactly. It's basically throwing good money after bad. How much do I want to invest in this car? Should I fix this car up, or should I sell it? And what some people will say is, well, the car is only worth $4,000, but I've already put $6,000 into it, so I don't want to sell it. But of course, you put that $6,000 in whether you sold it or not. So it really doesn't make sense to base a decision on that. It's about throwing good money after bad. And what these researchers found at the INSEAD business school in Europe is that people, after just one 15-minute mindfulness exercise and then did some word problems, found that without doing this practice, 50% of people fell prey to this sunk cost bias. And after mindfulness practice, it was 22%. So that's less than half. Okay? And if we think about it, if we think about what mindfulness does, it makes sense, right? It brings us back into the present moment and really lets us see the world somewhat with fresh eyes. And a couple of more studies. This is a study done on people who have long-term meditation practices at different ages. Okay? And what they found is that they measured the gray matter in people's brains. Now, I think they left the brains in the head, and they found a highly technical way to do this. Okay? They actually use MRIs to do this, and this research has come very far recently. And they found that, and the number on the bottom is the age of the people. So basically, they found that in a control group, the older the people are that they were looking at, the lower the smaller the amount of gray matter in their brains. Very slightly, of course, but significantly. However, for people who had a mindfulness practice, who meditated, there was no decrease in the amount of gray matter in the brain. Okay, so in a way, it looks like this is kind of shielding the brain from aging. Now, I'm not I'm saying it looks like I have no idea what's going on here. I'm just kind of adding that common sense interpretation to this. And the researchers here will also say that it's a preliminary study. So let's not overinterpret this, yet it is what it is. In the same study, they also found that the ability to pay attention, which usually also goes down, pay sustained attention, begins to remain constant for people who have a meditation practice. And then finally, the reaction time, which usually goes up as we get older, also remains stable. So this is some powerful evidence that mindfulness is creating some changes in the brain. And it actually is. There's other work done on neural imaging that has shown this. There's a concept called neuroplasticity, which is fairly new. I see some people nodding their heads. Would one of you like to share what neuroplasticity is?
I've only heard about it on the ads for Lumosity.
Okay. On Lumosity, right. What it means is that when I was in college in the 80s, we believed that the brain cells you have when you turn about 25 is all you're going to have. And all the brain cells you burn when I was in college were not coming back. Now, I don't know if that may still be true. But what researchers have found since then is that your brain is actually constantly changing. Your brain is constantly wiring and rewiring itself. And there's a saying now which says that neurons that fire together wire together. And so as we do mindfulness practice, it actually does create stronger circuits and different circuits in our brains. Okay? I'm giving you a lot from a lot of different areas. We could go into depth in any of these areas, but I'm going to keep going. Does this make sense so far? Any questions so far? Yes?
From the studies that I've read, what's exciting is it doesn't take 30 years of meditation to get those kind of results. It happens amazingly quick in the brain.
It happens pretty quickly. But I will say that if you want to see sustained benefits, I would recommend an ongoing practice. Yeah. But the benefits can show up quite quickly. And then the last study that I wanted to share with you, which I think is really interesting. Okay. So here's the scene. Tricky experimenters, right? They set up a fake waiting room with one empty seat. Okay, and then they invite someone who's part of the study to come in and take the one empty seat. After that person sits down, they have an actor come in on crutches. And this is the waiting room for some experiment or something. And the person comes in with crutches going, oh, oh, oh. And the other people who are in the waiting room quickly hold up their phones and start not paying attention to this person. The question is, does the person who is actually the subject of the experiment get up and give their seat up to the person who walks in with crutches? Okay? Guess what? 50% of the people who had completed a 6-week mindfulness course got up and gave their seat to that person. Only 15% or 16% of people who had not completed the course gave up their seats. Okay? Now, you may think this is high, but remember, the other people around were actually told to not give up their seats. So the person who gave up their seat is actually going against the norm in that waiting room. Okay? Interesting studies. And again, we can kind of see the connection, right, in terms of I'm paying attention. Okay? It's harder for me to pretend I don't notice. It's harder for me to pretend I don't care because I'm fully engaged in what's going on. And I see that person. That make sense? Okay. So, that's why people are interested in mindfulness. Okay? All these things. And then we'll talk about some of the more of the work-related benefits in a moment. But you can see improved memory, better ability to connect, better empathy, lower stress. Would these things be useful in the workplace? Yes, it would. Absolutely. So, let's talk about that. Let's talk about mindfulness training in organizations. And this is something that's just beginning to happen now. All right? It's just kind of beginning to happen now, although it's been in the news a lot. So I don't know if everyone can read this. This is someone teaching mindfulness in giving instructions for meditation in the workplace. And he says to his colleagues, in your mind's browser, clear your cache. Now delete your history and navigate to a blank web page. Okay? So the point here is, if you're going to teach meditation at work, you probably have to talk about things a little bit differently. Right? Yes and no. You do. You do and you don't. But certainly something has to change. And let me give you the big picture or one model, one way to think about what's happening in terms of mindfulness in the workplace. And I think this has probably happened with a lot of other technologies as well, human technologies. And it's kind of a process. The first thing that we saw is that there are individual closet meditators. Okay? This was perhaps in the 70s when somebody meditated, and they would never admit it to anyone. Right? Yet, it helped them to be more present and more effective at work. So it did have a benefit to them and to others. Excuse me. The next step after this would be informal groups, okay, organic growth. Perhaps a couple of meditators say, oh, yeah, you do that? Okay, I do that too. Maybe we should get together at lunch, or maybe we can get a speaker into our staff meeting and talk about this, because we really like it. Maybe we can set up a group and do some of this. And by the way, each one of these steps is happening in different organizations. It's not like we're all kind of moving through this, okay? The next step in terms of bringing mindfulness in organizations would be kind of more of a formal program, okay? Something such as the Potential Project would offer, I could offer, where you come to class, you get assignments, you learn about concepts, and you go back and you do it, okay? So you would think that that's pretty far, and that is quite far. That can have a big impact on an organization when numbers of people go through. But it's really kind of taking that person, and they're going through the training, and they're learning all these wonderful ideas, and then what happens? They go back to their cube, and their boss says, could you do these 4 things right now? And by the way, okay, so perhaps they're able to deal with that better, but it's not sinking into the workplace. It's not affecting how things are getting done. It's not affecting the norms, if you will. Okay? It's kind of like dipping people and then putting them back into the system that created them. The next level is aligning mindfulness practice, mindfulness training to goals. Okay? So for instance, does anybody here see perhaps a potential between this practice and diversity? If you were able to really just open up and let go of your biases and just notice things and people just as they are. Okay? So perhaps there's the opportunity to offer mindfulness practice as part of a diversity program or part of a quality program. Okay? A safety program. We've done workshops at organizations where it's all about safety in industrial situations, and mindfulness is very helpful there. So this is about bringing mindfulness into an organization to have a benefit, to change the culture, to change something that's going on in that company. Not just the people, but the way things are done. Okay, and that does happen. And then the last level, as far as I can tell, the last one that I can think of, would be integrating mindfulness into core processes. So imagine if you were in a sales organization, and your sales training included taking a breath, calming the mind before going on a sales call. Okay? Imagine if every new leader in an organization learned how to become more calm and more present under pressure. Okay? In this way, really baking it into the fabric, or performance management. Okay? Imagine if we learned how to listen and open up to other people in a really authentic way. What that might do to performance management processes, which we all know everybody hates. Right? So that is kind of the way I see the way that mindfulness could be brought into organizations and is being brought into organizations. As I said, each of these steps is happening somewhere in an organization right now. Any questions about this or comments about this? Okay. So how do we make this happen? Well, I want to come back a little bit. So we're all, training or talent management professionals. I am as well. And we all have some experience, I'm assuming, or some exposure at least, to doing training in organizations. Right? Getting in front of a group, knowing what it's like, knowing what it takes to get people to try to remember things, to evaluate programs, and all these things that are involved in training and talent development. How does that look? Is mindfulness just another topic? Okay? Can the same person who did delegation skills yesterday come back today and do mindfulness training? Well, the short answer is it's not really that simple. And the way I think makes sense to think about this, the way I'd like to walk you through this, is to talk a little bit about how mindfulness training has been done historically. Secular mindfulness training over the last, since John Kabat-Zinn basically started doing this stuff in the early 1980s. So traditional mindfulness training, the first program that really introduced this concept in a secular way is called Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction, or MBSR. It's a training program that happens, that's delivered in a community, okay? And people come and take it. I teach it also. Sheila Wall also teaches it. We both teach here in the Fairfield County area, okay? And this is the way it looks.
What's that thing?
Okay, sorry. So those are bells, actually. Both of those things are bells, and you knock those together to make a little dinging sound, okay? And these are the types of bells that are often used, actually, in MBSR classes. Okay, and they originate in the East. I don't know what country, but thank you. Sorry about that. So MBSR, the classes are 2.5 hours long. Okay? There could be, many times there's 15 to 25 people in a class. We all sit in a circle. Okay? Fully exposed to each other, just in a circle. Okay? There's a flip chart. We use flip charts occasionally. We have a very thin workbook. There's no PowerPoint. Okay, there's no multimedia. Yes, exactly. Well, there is now. There's plenty of apps now. But in the way this was traditionally taught, no apps at all. Okay, and we use bells to end meditations. It's lovely. I mean, there's no problem with it, really. The training or the teaching happens through stories and metaphors, okay? Personal sharing. We would do something like we did now. We'll do that every week to say, how did it go last week? What did you notice? What did you experience? What questions do you have? Discussions of what's going on in the body, how your body is feeling now. Discussions of what emotions are present for you right now and how are they showing up for you, okay? And an expectation that people spend 45 minutes a day doing mindfulness practice on their own time. So if I brought this to one of your clients or one of the organizations you work for and said, I want to deliver this in your company, what would you say?
Not enough time.
There's not enough time. It's not going to work. Okay? So by the way, it's not up here, but it's 8 classes that happen once a week for 8 weeks. 8 2.5-hour classes. As well as one full day class. So it doesn't really work in organizations, right? So what are we used to? We're used to classroom or a conference room, 1 hour max. It's gotten shorter since in my career. I know yours as well, right? 1 hour is a good time for a training program, especially if you're going to be back a number of weeks. PowerPoint, a lot of research, a lot of data that's presented, right? Multimedia clips and all that kind of stuff. You teach practical skills. Okay, what can I use today? What will help me get my job done? Work-related topics. Okay? Any exercises would be maybe 10 to 15 minutes. Okay? And then exercises that are really focused around things that happen in the office. So how do these two worlds come together? Is it possible to teach mindfulness in this way? Well, the short answer is yes, it is. And it's also possible to go perhaps halfway there. And if you think about it this way, it really depends on the organization. Some places are very sophisticated about this. For instance, school, does a lot around mindfulness. Eileen Fisher, another, a women's ready-to-wear organization, clothing manufacturer, does a lot about mindfulness. They have bells in every conference room. Okay? So it really depends on the company and what you're trying to do and how you're trying to do it in terms of how you deliver it. But I think there's no question that there has to be a movement from how mindfulness is traditionally taught more towards the workplace. But there's certain things that we can't lose. Okay? And I'll talk about that actually on the next slide. So what does this look like? What kinds of programs are out there that you could bring into an organization or, that a consultant could bring into a client? Well, some of the ways that mindfulness is brought into organizations is, the first one is basically a lunch and learn. Okay? Come in an hour, we do some of the same things that we did here, some more exercises, a different kind of feel to it. And then people go on their way. Well, this is good. It's easy to schedule, which is great. And it gets a lot of information out. Okay? But there's problems with it. And the biggest problem, really, is... Oops. Uh-oh. The biggest problem is this one right here. Limited support for ongoing practices. Because in order to get the benefits of mindfulness, you really do have to do it daily for several weeks. It only has to be 10 to 15 minutes a day. But it does have to happen daily. Otherwise, what happens is you learn a lot, you get very excited, and then you walk out, and then a week later, it's gone. Right? You learn something new, and you're on to the next thing. Okay? And you're not going to see the benefits. So that's a problem with doing just an introductory session, and also the problem with doing a single workshop. Okay? The best way to really teach mindfulness is through a multi-week program. Okay? And if it's not a multi-week program, then some kind of check-ins along the way to make sure to encourage people to continue to practice. Make sense? Another way that can work is a retreat or an offsite. And this is certainly useful, with senior executives who, if you're able to get them offsite, that is one way you can get people's attention and really get them to sink into something. Okay? But again there, I think follow-up is something that needs to be built in. Okay?
Yeah. And what if I'm doing diversity training? Could I fold in mindfulness into that?
It can be. It can be. We'll talk about what it takes to teach mindfulness as well, because it is something that is a little bit different from just learning. What did we used to say? Watch one. How does it go?
Watch one, do one, teach one.
Watch one, do one, teach one. It's a little bit different from that. Okay? It's not something you can just read the materials of the week before and then go in and teach it. Okay? But yes, it's very compatible with that, and it can be done. Yeah. Okay? So these are the types of programs, the types of ways that mindfulness practice is getting into organizations right now. Okay? And the other thing that I will say is that another thing that's really helpful, the introductory session is extremely useful if you're planning on offering a multi-week program. People may have very different understandings of what mindfulness is, as we might have had here. And it's really helpful to get people together for an hour to really talk it through so that if they take the program, they know what they're signing up for. And so a lot of times what we'll do is we'll offer a 1-hour program, and at the end of the program we'll say, if you like what we said today, go sign up for the course. And that way they come in educated and ready to go. Make sense? Okay. All right, so we covered these two topics. The next thing I wanted to talk about is some case studies. All right, so I'm going to share 2 case studies with you, 2 organizations where I've been fortunate enough to do mindfulness training. First one is a large insurance company up in the Hartford area. And just to give you a sense of what this training looked like, it had all these elements that I just mentioned. Okay? We began with a 90-minute presentation about what mindfulness is. and then we offered people the opportunity to sign up. Okay? Once they signed up, we did a series of 6 classes. All right, 1 a week, and they came to those classes. And each class consisted of all the things, we discussed, how's it going, as we did here. We didn't have a lot of PowerPoints in this program. It was pretty kind of in the middle of that range between the 2 poles. And every class also, we did 15 minutes of mindfulness practice. Now, the practice that we did here was about 5 minutes, I would say. Okay, so a little bit extended. Okay, and then with the assignment also for going home and for being part of the program is to do 15 minutes a day on your own. Okay. Also, there were online guided practices that you could download and listen to, and that's very common now. Okay. So, what were the results? The nice thing about a 6-week class is that you can do a pre-assessment and a post-assessment, and you can actually see differences. It's like if you taught delegation skills and you could give 6 weeks and then ask, did things actually change, instead of asking them at the end of the class, how much did you like it? So it's a little bit getting down the road towards impact, although this is still self-report. So what did we see? This was on a scale from 1 to 10, and this just shows how many people answer these questions in terms of 8, 9, and 10. In other words, how many people strongly agreed with this statement? Okay? How well do you handle stress? Before the class, less than 10% of people felt that they handled stress really well. After the class, 30%. Okay? When I'm away from work, I can relax and not worry about work. From 30% to almost 50%. I feel overwhelmed by my responsibilities. Went from 25% down to 15%. I feel this is an interesting one. I feel I have my home life and work life in good balance. No change, basically. So this is interesting because I've seen this before, where people will say, I feel just as stressed now as I have just as much stress in my job now as I did before. But then you ask them, how well do you deal with that stress? I deal with it better. Okay, so people do not suddenly think that they're like in a beautiful place. Their lives are still the same, unless they are, of course. Their lives are still the same, but they have better tools to deal with what they're facing. Okay? And then finally, I'm a very productive employee, from 50% to 75% self-report. Anonymous self-report, I should add. More results. At the end of the workday, I've usually accomplished all that I wanted to do, from 20 to 35%. Okay, so you can see the types of results we see here from people who take these courses. And this is not just one skill. These are things that really permeate how you go through your day. Any questions? Yes.
It's more of a comment. There's a vibrational effect from doing the mindfulness within your workplace. It's taking it home, you can start doing it with the family. So then it spreads. So I've done this in the classrooms with a former teacher.
Yes.
It's just vibrational from adults to children.
Yes.
And friends. I'm back and it just silent for hours. Because when people see a change in you,
yes,
they just observe it. Like, what's it thinking about? What are you doing?
Yeah. Thank you. It is a vibrational effect. It's very true. And you do bring it home. I mean, you don't just, this does not just affect your work. And by the way, the other funny thing is that, remember how I said we teach mindfulness in one way in the community and another place in the workplace? Guess what? The people who we teach in the community, do you think some of those people have jobs? It's not like 2 different races of people here, So in a way, it's really funny to think about the fact that we have all these, you can't do this at work, you can't talk about that. But you can go home and go to a class and do all that stuff. So it's kind of interesting to think about our conventions in that way. But yes, it does vibrate out. You don't just leave it at work. Absolutely. Okay?
Leave the work at work.
Hopefully, yes. Leave the work at work, yes.
At the difference between individuals who might go through mindfulness training versus doing this in a more in a team environment or a workplace environment?
I haven't personally, no. But I could imagine that the effects would be powerful.
I just wonder sort of what the role of the discussion with peer groups does it limit some people? Does it make, more comfortable, less comfortable, all that sort of thing versus they're approaching it one-on-one?
I think that's a good question. I mean, I've definitely done training where a lot of the people work together, but haven't really looked at how different those results might be. I know that right now it's still kind of, one of the things we're very conscious of is we don't mandate mindfulness training. Okay, so if you get a job as a project manager, somebody may tell you, okay, you need to take PMP. Okay, you need to take project management training if you want to have this job. Okay, I don't really see mindfulness practice like that, and definitely would not say, okay, I'm very cautious about, we're not going to go into an organization and support someone who says my whole team is going through this. Okay, because I don't think that has good results. This really has to be taken on willingly and consciously. Yeah. Okay. So that's the first case study. The second one was with a strategic consulting firm in New York City. Okay? Very similar setup. Okay? 90-minute presentation, and this was done with the Potential Project. The last one I should mention was done by Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare. There's a person up there who started a mindfulness program internal to the organization, internal to Harvard Pilgrim, and then their clients found out about it and wanted to get it. So she started to do mindfulness training for the customers of Harvard Pilgrim, and now she actually offers it to, she basically has her own industry and offers it to anyone who wants it. And I've worked with them and was able to deliver this program as part of their team. This next project was done as part of the Potential Project. Okay? Again, very similar setup, 90-minute presentation, a series of 10 classes. Okay, not 6, but 10. And they were spread out over maybe 15 weeks or so. Why? Conference room space. So this is something that I've also seen shift, right, in the last 10 years. It's like you can't get a conference room to save your life anymore. People's offices and cubes are shrinking, and that's the way it is. So, again, very similar setup in terms of what happens in the class. The only difference here is that we actually did 20 or more minutes of mindfulness practice in each class. The reason is that the person who brought us in was a partner in the firm, and he had a meditation practice. And he said, if people are going to take this class, they need to meditate 20 minutes in each class. And you know what? That's what we did. And also, we had some other resources that we use at the Potential Project. We will send an email after each class, so if you miss one class, you feel like you're still in the loop. We do have an app, okay, where you can download meditations. And we also designated internal champions, people who were believers, and they booked conference space as they could for people to meditate together and things like that. So a little bit more robust program, if I could say that. And what were the results? Well, we did 2 sessions. All right, we did 2 classes. The first one, we used their internal training evaluation process, and this is what we found. This is the way this organization likes to measure the value of training. From a scale from 1 to 10, what was the value that you got for the time you spent in class? Okay, above 6. What was the effectiveness of the teachers? I didn't realize that was there, but yeah. And would you recommend this program to others? So we love these metrics, right? If they come out well, we love them. Yes. Okay, 94% said they would recommend this program to others. Okay. So it doesn't seem to be so, so fringe, really, does it? After this, we said, okay, we'll run another course for you. This time we'll use our measures. We'll do our pre-test and post-test and see what we get. And so I pulled out some of the items from the evaluation from the second course we ran. Some of the items, okay? And this is how many people agree with these statements. I'm easily distracted while working. Before the class, 75% agreed with that. After class, 30%. Okay? I find that my mind is often busy and unclear. I find it easy to focus on tasks. That one went way up. I mean, really big effects. It is relatively easy for me to be efficient and effective at work. At the end of the workday, I usually have accomplished all that I wanted to do. Big effects on global things. Now, you might argue, well, these are very global. What if you ask more specific questions? I know training evaluation and I know psychometrics, so we could scratch the surface here. But still, at face value, it's pretty big effects. Stress. This is what I mentioned before. I often feel stressed at work. No change. Yet, I feel I handle stress well. There we have a change. Okay? So these people are not checking out. They're not suddenly working in some la-la land. Okay? They're still busting their butts. They're still flying all over the place, meeting with, putting presentations together on the plane. Yet they're able to do it with a little bit more, perhaps more ease. Okay. Results overall. Has this program impacted your effectiveness at work? 90%. Has it impacted your wellness at work? 90%. Do you plan on continuing your mindfulness practice in the future? 100%. Would you recommend this program to others? 100%. And that's what we see is that people, they may or may not do it, honestly. But after people finish a class like this, there's a strong intention to keep this going. There really is. And then, yes?
That's actually my question is, have you had any data for, go back a year later to that test group, and are they still doing it? Are they still feeling the benefits? Time up to 6 years, 10 years.
Yes.
Jacked up, and wow, this is great.
Yeah.
Longer term.
Yeah. It's good.
What do you hear? What do you think?
Well, actually, Harvard Pilgrim, the person who runs that program, Tara Healy, she's done 3-month follow-ups and has seen 70 to 80% of people keep it up. Okay? That I'm pretty sure that's right. Pretty high number. Now that doesn't mean they will do the practice every day, but it's like going to the gym. Once you're in the habit, if you don't go for a while, you feel it and you want to go back. It's kind of like that. You'll fall off, you'll fall back on. And I use that a lot. In terms of it's like taking care of yourself. Like we spend probably 15 minutes a day brushing our teeth. Okay? You want to spend that much time on dental hygiene? This is mental hygiene. Your brain is worth it. Right? And then we have some comments. All right. Has this course impacted your effectiveness? I'm calmer no matter what is going on. I know when to take a break, and I still manage to get everything done that needs to be done. I'm better able to focus on the task at hand and less worried about past and future projects. How has this course impacted your wellness and happiness at work? By being more conscious of what I do, makes me more effective and generates a sense of meaningfulness through small acts of impact. I'm finding more energy during the day and realize when I'm losing energy, I don't let difficult situations get me down. And then finally, the more I get done, the happier I am. And then finally, one of my favorite comments. What have you learned in this program? What are your key takeaways? That how you work is a choice. You can choose your focus, attitude, etc., and that makes a big difference in how you get through life. So clearly, these things are not just about, the next meeting. They really impact people. So, how does this look? How would you bring this into an organization now? Okay, or how would it come into an organization now? We talked about some of the ways the training program would look. Okay? Let's get down into a little bit more of the nitty-gritty. First thing you need to know, whoever you bring in, you got to do it right. I've been to more than one company where I say, this is great. You should really try it. And they say, yeah, I know it's great, but we had someone in last year, and he was a disaster, and nobody wants to hear about it again. Okay? It can take, I think it probably takes about 2 years. Unless people are really savvy and they say, well, we got the wrong guy, let's bring somebody else in. But a lot of times people say, oh yeah, no, we tried that. Forget it. So I would encourage you with something new like this to be very thoughtful about how you bring it in. Okay? And then when you do, how do you know? What does it take? There's two sides of this question. What does it take to be a teacher? And how do you know a good teacher or a good organization, training organization, when you see one? First, it comes down to the trainer. As I mentioned, Sheila and I both teach this course called Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction. That's kind of like a mindfulness training boot camp. But the bottom line is you want to ask someone, have you taught mindfulness before? Because if you haven't, you won't be any good. Okay? You just won't. Do you have a mindfulness practice? Do you meditate? Okay? People should have meditated for I'd say 5 years, to bring into a top shelf client, and longer. Okay? And then they also have to have business experience, because a lot of people who teach MBSR, they can be therapists or social workers, and they may be very good at what they do, but they're not going to fly in an organization. So you have to bring those two things together. Make sense? Okay. But the trainer really is the most important thing, because that's how a trainer teaches. They teach what they know. They don't teach what they've read. Next is the approach. Okay, you want an approach that is business friendly, that's not going to be 2.5 hours, et cetera, et cetera. But you also want to make sure that there's the emphasis on mindfulness practice. It's not just teaching. Okay, it's about engaging people over a period of time and giving them the tools and the encouragement to really try this out and give it a fair shot. Okay? And then support for ongoing practice. Like I said, apps or follow-up meetings or whatever. Okay? And by the middle one, emphasis on mindfulness practice, I mean spending time in class, doing it, debriefing, how did it go last week, that kind of stuff. Okay? And the final thing is the organization. So there are several organizations out there now who have been doing this for a while now, and the Potential Project is one of them, certainly. There are a lot of other people who kind of are adding this to their portfolio, and often with very good intentions, okay, but not knowing what they don't know. So it's worth talking to people and understanding, what does how long has your organization been at this? And also talk to them about the normal concerns you would have about training. What if it catches on? Are you going to be able to deliver? Okay, how do you deal with scaling up? Okay, what's your capacity to meet our needs? Okay. Yeah.
Would that mean somebody in one department and see if it was worth another? Those kind of meetings?
It could be, yes. Or also from one location to another. Okay, and potentially globally. Honestly, if GE is interested in mindfulness training, better be able to, better be on your toes.
Well, I saw your company started in Denmark.
Yes.
So it's international and global right now.
Yes.
Across the board.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure the time. I came out of corporate, went into teaching, and then practicing since '94. And did it with 2,000 kids and teachers. So I'm not taking the spotlight, but I just want to let them know what he's teaching works. It really works. And even taking a course with this type, whatever you choose, that's what I tell people, it's your choice. This works, because I've seen it going across the board. In 97, I began putting mindfulness, and I did a staff development workshop in London. So this is just to plug his work. At the beginning of his support, and I do this also, whoever gets it, as long as somebody gets it, because ultimately, you can't sell peace, but yes, you can. Okay? Bottom line, there's going to be some peace you feel in your life. And I put in practice, even in the operating room at the Presbyterian, as a neurosurgeon, meditated before they cut me. You know, so. And I asked them, don't drink before they I just did a list and said, dear doctor, do me a favor, no joking around, no calling each other names. But the subconscious mind picks everything up. You're under anesthesia. And that's where, you know, this is so effective.
Yes.
This, I forgot your name, I'm sorry.
Andy.
Yeah, I came off the road late. Bronx, but, you know, always on time.
Thank you.
So this is to plug, I support with integrity other people's work. He doesn't know me, but taking it, even if you don't do it every day, there's a long-term effect. Because when you do become aware that, wait a minute, I learned this, or that guy, I forgot his name, but I felt good after he did it. My students did the same thing.
Yeah.
In kindergarten, and 2 years later, the spirit, when my parents were fighting, I did what you taught us.
So you planted the seeds. You planted the seeds, right?
Yeah, the little kids, and
Yeah.
calm environment. I worked until Hunts Point, South Carolina.
Right, right.
You know, anyway, going back to you, but I had to give him a plug.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
We'll connect later. Anyway.
Yes. And actually, they also teach us in prisons, and with good results. So you can think about some of the places where this could be helpful. Schools, certainly. And then I just wanted to very quickly, because we're just about out of time, talk about some of the places where mindfulness could be brought in. Okay. Certainly, it's a great employee wellness program. Okay. And by the way, what is employee wellness is also a recruiting tool. So right now, leading companies are offering mindfulness training. This is something powerful for an organization to bring onto campus or to help recruit members. Leadership and high potential development. Some of the biggest derailers of leadership are what? Arrogance, okay? Lack of self-awareness, okay? This hits it nailed right on the head, okay? So certainly, I think that mindfulness training would be great to offer as part of a high potential program. You know, almost, I think it'll be essential, honestly, in the near future. Skill development, okay? Again, think about all the competencies that are implicated in terms of what we talked about. Being able to listen, being able to be fully present, to pay attention, okay? These things can add to coaching or communication or innovation, leadership, presentation skills, workshops, okay, these types of ideas. And once people get it, once people have gone through a program, all they need is to go into another program and be reminded in terms of how those skills can apply to this skill set. And then finally, performance management, as I said, one of actually my favorite processes. Imagine what performance management conversations might look like if people are actually fully present and not talking to themselves or worried about how they look, but really engaged in what's going on right here and right now. Okay? So right now, we have we're going to be able to see how this plays out. Is mindfulness going to be just another, end up just kind of another keynote, just, someone comes in and says something at a town hall and goes away and everybody gets a good laugh or a good, interesting time? Or is it something that really takes root? Okay? That can help to change cultures, help change the quality of leadership in organizations, help people just be happier and more successful and less stressed at work. And what would that be like? So that's really what we're facing here. And I'm really happy to be part of this and happy to share it with you because I think it's great work. And I want to thank you for your attention. And thank you for the opportunity to be here. So that's all I have.
I think we've got time for like 2 questions, 3 questions. Can we turn it over to Andy?
Yes.
As a training director, perhaps interested in this program, how would I go about how do I go about finding a good practitioner? Are there academic credentials or professional certifications that people might have, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, I would say certainly if someone teaches mindfulness-based stress reduction, if someone has a background in teaching that program, that's a great place to start. Otherwise, you just kind of have to look at the resume and just ask them, how long have you been doing this? How long have you had a personal meditation practice? How long have you been teaching? But don't just assume that because a vendor is good at delivering something else, that they're going to be good at delivering this. You really have to look at and say who's going to be teaching. You know, don't just buy the organization. Look at the individual who's coming in.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. All right, then. It's actually true. So I want to say thank you to Andy for tonight. I want to say thank you to everybody here tonight. And somewhere there was a basket going around because we have a raffle for a free meeting. So if you're interested, throw your card in, and Michelle's passing around the basket, and then we will pull the card, and we'll find out who gets a free meeting at the meeting of your choice. As we saw, there are evaluations on each table. So please complete those evaluations. If you have ideas for future programming, let us know. We read them. We think about them. We take all of the data that we've collected through the year, and we talk about it in July at our strategic planning session. So please, we look forward to your thoughts. We look forward to your evaluations. Anybody else to add? Oh, we got that table over there. Just a reminder, bylaws, you'll see the link coming out for those of you who are members. If you're not members, sign up so you can get to vote. It's always a wonderful thing. And the winner is Hugh. Right here in front. Congratulations, you get the meeting of your choice, a free one. So just a quick reminder, April 13th will be Ron Ashkenaz. In May, we'll have Raghu Krishnamurthy, who is the CLO for GE. And then in June, we have ATD's Got Talent. Anything else that I forgot from my board? Be here. Be here. Thanks very much. Safe trip home.